Microphone check, 1, 2, what is this? It's the 5'7" assassin in the podcast business. I am your host, Rohan Patra, the rap music plug at your service. The Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV is the remedy to the I don't have anything good to listen to problem. Through in-depth album and song reviews, as well as artist interviews and general rap commentary sprinkled in between on all of what the mainstream and underground rap scenes have to offer, this is your one-stop shop to knowing what to add to your queue, play next, or pop into your record player. Welcome to the show. What is up, family? Today I am so excited to tell you about Wiki. Not Wikipedia, but the New York rapper, once part of the experimental hip-hop group Ratking, who is one of the most unique voices in the game. And he has just recently dropped a collaborative album with Nah. So who are these people? Well, Wiki gaining acclaim with Ratking, whose sound featured some really strange drum patterns, out of the ordinary song structures. Since day one, Wiki always stood out and found a way to successfully carve a niche amidst this chaotic production. Wiki's rapping is not necessarily all that complex, but there's something to it. Maybe it's the thick accent of his that I find makes him a very acquired taste. As a rapper that really demands you pay attention and give him multiple spins. Not necessarily to quote unquote get the meaning behind his lyrics, but for you to really connect with the rapping. But once I do connect with an artist like Wiki, I find myself so drawn in to the simple rawness of his style. So after Ratking broke up shortly after their big So It Goes album in 2014, Wiki certainly had a smooth transition to his career as a solo artist. Always dropping good projects, but I found nothing truly wowed me from front to back. In 2017, he dropped his XL Recordings label debut, No Mountains in Manhattan, which I think was the closest he got to fully realizing his potential. In 2018, after forming a supergroup titled Secret Circle with Lil Ugly Mane and Antoine, this group disbanded, unfortunately, due to some sexual assault allegations that was facing Antoine, and Wiki left out of disgust. So on top of that, he left the label XL, so he was going through a lot at the time when he released his latest record, 2019's Oofy, which I thought was pretty good, but didn't fully do it for me. It had some of the cool left field elements that I've liked from his music in the past, but I don't think they fully committed to it. What is particularly interesting about this album as well, as it relates to Telephonebooth, the album that we're discussing today, is that Nah produced 8 of the 14 tracks on this thing. So Nah, as the producer for Telephonebooth, is someone from Philly who I was completely unfamiliar with until the release of this album. But going back through his catalog, he definitely had a pretty unique sound that's very left field, is quite glitchy, and sometimes very noisy too. So him and Wiki do seem like they could work as a good pair on Telephonebooth. So moving into Telephonebooth now, I want to start with the production from Nah. Nah's production here on Telephonebooth is very skeletal, but by no means is it dry. It draws from a distinctly 80s, 90s sound palette, infusing these instrumentals with pop, electronic, and rock influences. The track Truth Be Told samples a segment of a very famous pop track that makes the track so groovy and so effortlessly catchy. The odd synths on the following track, Hip Hop, was a nice highlight as well. And on both of these tracks, and throughout this whole album really, the structure of this album's production was made very clear. Off-kilter, very left field drum patterns, 80s, 90s sound influenced in the beats. Off-kilter, very left field drum patterns, 80s and 90s sounds, with a very glitch-hoppy aesthetic in the rhythms. along with these consistent blasts of euphoric sound that give this album a beautifully psychedelic feeling. Nas' production sort of makes me feel like Ade Hakim's, except their sample sources are much different. Ade draws mainly from a soul and funk database of sound, whereas Nas strikes these cold, eerie tones, infusing his instrumentals with cold 80s, 90s pop rock and electronic sounds. Hungover and No Work, truth be told as well, are absolute highlights. The beautiful psychedelic sounds surrounding the glitchy drumming on No Work was simply phenomenal. The super drugged out and hypnotic production on the aptly titled Hungover was terrific as well. And overall, on this album, the skeletal, glitchy, and strange drum patterns are often very disorienting. So these skittering drums at first, I found, for me at least, distracted me and made me not realize just how pretty these nice synths, distorted guitars, keys, and jazz samples that were placed as kind of bright blasts of sound throughout this album, which is in sharp contrast with the black and white album cover. Friendship and Shittin' Me are both perfect examples of this dynamic. The production took me quite a while to really connect with, but now it's an absolute strength of this album. I love the immersive sound and atmosphere that Nah created. As we move to Wiki's contributions now, I have to say that this is a very odd album. It's odd not only in the sound, but because on one hand, I can't help but feel like Wiki is not nearly as impactful or impressive enough lyrically. There isn't really a lot of crazy wordplay or super emotionally evocative subject matter here. But on the other hand, although it's not all that consistent with my usual preferences, I can't help the fact that I just don't find myself caring about any of that much at all. More than any album of his in the past, Wiki acts as more of a complement to the beat than ever before, and I think it kicks ass. It's an album that demands many close listens, surely. Emphasis on the close there, because the album is so short and dense, with very mesmerizing production, that the album sort of comes and goes in a flash. Ideas come and go, but I appreciate how focused Wiki is, as the lyrics aren't scattered by any means within a given track. Hip-hop sees Wiki make various references to the genre, mixing it in with some nostalgia and commentary on growing up in New York. No Work is a hypnotizing ode to just living life on your own terms. Shit Blood was a nice introspective cut relating to the loss of friends, not necessarily due to death, but just growing apart, as well as touches on alcoholism that I know Wiki has experienced in the past. And Friendship was a beautiful track celebrating how far he came making it through poverty and adversity, with a climactic celebratory beat that was just super dope. A misstep in the tracklist though was Sexy John, which it was actually still a pretty good song, but kind of was a step down from the rest of the album and relied mostly on the very engaging production. And that's mainly because the sex woman jams have never really been a strong point for Wiki. And this song is no exception, as the singing and lyrics aren't bad, but they're just not all that good either. Wiki does come off a bit awkward when he ventures into these lanes. The song felt like an interlude, even though it's one of the longer tracks on here, with its 2 minutes and 14 seconds runtime. And now that brings us to the structure of this album, Telephonebooth. Telephonebooth gives me a very similar feeling that Earl Sweatshirt's Some Rap Songs did, strictly in the sense that the songs were very short, with many ideas coming in and out very quickly, and I really feel like without a strong reason why, there is some it factor that kept me coming back, and after so many listens, I find Telephonebooth to be dope as hell. The key drawback, though, I see with this album is the other side, the other edge of this double-edged sword as it relates to the album's leanness. Wiki is very focused on each of these tracks. The Crown showcases to an extreme just how similarly lean this album is to a Some Rap Songs, where he somehow fits an entire guest verse and a own verse from Wiki himself in these 55 seconds without either of the verses sounding very rushed. The thing though, unlike Some Rap Songs, is is that Wiki doesn't fully captivate me lyrically all the time, with an overall message that isn't as clear as I would like it to be. Although he is definitely very focused on each track, zeroing in on a specific topic, is he always presenting complete thoughts? I don't really think so. Often you don't get the full entire scope of the idea presented on the song, and this is largely due to the fact that the songs are just so short, and is magnified by the fact that Wiki actually incorporates a lot of hooks or pseudo hooks that are repetitive on these tracks. But that brings me to the overall narrative of this album that I got, which works to alleviate the importance of this drawback, which is that Wiki tackles each song like a mini conversation with someone on the phone. He's still transparent and vulnerable on the album, but he chooses to cover a large breadth of topics versus deep diving on one or a couple particular ones. Sure, common themes emerge, but the details aren't as fully fleshed out. So I do find myself wanting more detail at times, but there is still simultaneously something so intriguing in the way he gives you these different but related thoughts. The genuine and raw atmosphere that he cultivates with his lyrics is genuinely great and makes me keep wanting to press play on this album over and over again. More than almost all of the albums I've heard in 2021, Telephonebooth really required me to take the extra time to really let it resonate with me. Nas' beats were an absolute home run and consistently impressed me, but it really took a long time for me to get there. Almost 10 listens, I feel. And Wiki's gritty delivery and high degree of transparency on this album, I find makes this Wiki's most interesting effort as a solo artist. A bit more detail and less hooks could have made this even better, but still, this is the most well-realized Wiki album to date, and therefore I give it a low 8. I think this is so rewarding upon multiple listens and is just so fresh. It's so cutting edge. It's really very similar, like I said, to some rap songs, but only in one aspect. I think the way Wiki approaches his lyrics and the sound palette that Na produces on this album is very unique and very worth your time. So check this out. So this concludes today's episode of the Rap Music Plug podcast presented by QLC TV. I hope this episode gave you some fresh new perspectives on the latest rap releases, as well as a recommendation for the next great rap record to add to your collection. If you're an artist looking to level up your career, getting more gigs, album sales, merch sales, whatever it may be, I would love to help you with that by providing you artist development and writing services. So if you're interested, contact me via email at qlctv.podcast@gmail.com or hit me up via Twitter or Instagram at Rohview, ROHVIEW. I would be honored to lend my expertise and help you grow your career as an artist. And also for regular rap fans that just want to hear more quality commentary on the genre, follow me on Twitter and Instagram as well. For exclusive content and updates related to the show, follow the Rap Music Plug podcast on Facebook to help the show grow and ensure that everyone's listening to the best rap music at all times. Follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Make sure you leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts so that the show can be spotlighted by that wonderful algorithm and be exposed to more people. You can find all of this information along with exclusive playlists created by myself by clicking the link that's in the episode's notes. So that's all for today. Talk to you soon. Peace.